I think LinkedIn is a big opportunity in 2025 because not that many Bitcoiners and Bitcoin companies are making use of it in the right way, because it's normie land, it's financiers and people involved in TradFi, and they don't, the message of memes, Pepe memes and like laser eyes doesn't resonate with people in the traditional finance world. So you need to tell things in a different way. I'm Bitcoin only till I die, so definitely not using the word crypto very much. One of my go-to sayings is like, nobody wants to study Bitcoin. Everyone's going around the Bitcoin space saying, hey, study Bitcoin. Nobody cares. Like, you go tap someone on the shoulder on the street and say, study Bitcoin. It's just like saying, study rocket science, or like study the, workings of a rabbit's intestines or something. Like, why would I do that? It's like, it's work, it's hard work, and I don't know why I should. So writing messages, stories, opinions, articles, which show people why they should care, I think that's what I like to focus on. If you're told up front, like a robot wrote this story, it's just not as meaningful. Like, the meaning in any art or anything that we consume really is connected to ourselves and other people. So who knows in 10 years what it's going to be like, but all I know is I'll be continuing the human-centric model of writing.
So today we're talking to Philip Charter. You're an author, editor, writer, and Bitcoiner. Can I say it like that?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary. Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. This is actually the first podcast that I've been on speaking directly about my work in Bitcoin, even though I've done lots of podcasts about other stuff, and especially the fiction project that I run related to Bitcoin. So maybe we'll get on and talk about that at some point. But yeah, thanks so much for having me, and I can't wait to get started and get chatting.
Great. Yeah, thanks for being with me. I saw on your LinkedIn profile you have Bitcoin listed as the language you speak fluently. So I guess you studied Bitcoin a bit.
I stole that off someone. I have to admit, I saw it on someone else's profile. It was like proficient in the language of Bitcoin. I was like, that's good. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah. And how did you get into Bitcoin?
I got into Bitcoin through a client of mine. I was, and still am, to some extent, coaching writers. I have worked in the past teaching language. That evolved into helping specifically writers who use English as a second language. And I work with clients on book projects, on non-fiction writing, mostly things like content writing or copywriting. And an absolute legend of the Bitcoin space, Nico Larmanen, got in touch with me because he's writing book and other content, and I worked with him on improving that. Essentially, I mean, his level of English is off the charts, but in terms of maybe the way he was aiming his writing, he wanted to change that, and we worked together anyway. I knew absolutely nothing about Bitcoin. This was in 2021. And I think after reading a lot of Nico's suggestions, in case anyone watching doesn't know, he's the head of Consensus Publishing, Consensus Network, which is a big publisher of and translator of Bitcoin books. He got me into reading about Bitcoin. I think I first took the plunge and bought Bitcoin in maybe early 2022. Can't remember. But I'm fairly new to it. But since then, I've been on a wild journey of reading a lot, interacting a lot, and still working with Consensus Network on a few different projects.
Yeah, amazing. And what do you think is the most fascinating? I mean, there's so much going on right now, like with the US planning to have it as a strategic reserve and all kinds of company putting it on their balance sheet. And it's kind of, in my view, it's going even faster than I thought it would.
I guess my perspective and where I am in the space, what I do is ghostwrite posts, articles, content, ebooks, things like that for founders and startups generally. If it's a big Bitcoin company and they just want more users, it's about pumping out lots of content and memes and keeping people engaged and giving them great offers and affiliate codes. With startups, they need to tell their story as well as onboarding users. They need investors and things like that. So that's the kind of space I'm involved in LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is a big opportunity in 2025 because not that many Bitcoiners and Bitcoin companies are making use of it in the right way, because it's normie land. It's financiers and people involved in TradFi, and they don't. The message of memes, Pepe memes and like laser eyes, doesn't resonate with people in the traditional finance world. So you need to tell things in a different way. But going back to what you were saying about what's interesting, for sure. I mean, Bitcoin consultants, to help companies get Bitcoin on the balance sheet, and all of these startups, these great apps and companies which are offering like bridge services or new products and services in the connected to Bitcoin, let's say. They need to get some investment. They need to tell their story. They need to onboard users and ensure that what they've spent so many years like working towards really pays off.
What do you say about LinkedIn? I kind of agree. I didn't use LinkedIn for quite a while because I kind of felt it was kind of implementing a lot of censorship. But now I have the feeling you get your message across more easily compared to Twitter or X or YouTube. It's a pretty big Bitcoin audience there. But I mean, today there's so much good content out there, and amongst Bitcoiners, like analogies or findings or are repeated quite a bit. How can you still make sure to stand out in this environment?
It's an interesting question. I think Bitcoin content creators and Bitcoiners in general often favor, like, we want to make use of tech, we want to make use of all these modern tools. Let's go with AI. Let's go with these scheduling tools that can push content out everywhere. On the one hand, that can help save time and can be efficient, but all these platforms are different. And as you know, what makes a video successful on YouTube is not the same thing as what makes video successful on LinkedIn or TikTok or Nostr. So it's about investing time in the platform and figuring out which one works for you. I mean, typically X is the place where Bitcoins hang out, and that's maybe now shifting to Nostr too a bit. But that's very good at like quickly spreading ideas because it's built on, retweets or reposts are the way that algorithmically, mathematically, content spreads. LinkedIn, I think, is a powerful tool because of the quality of the data that you get. When you search for a person, you get a huge amount of data linked to their work history and their, what they are investing their time in, which isn't really available elsewhere. So going back to the idea of a founder or a company, you can search for investors in the space in your area. If you're a local business and you have a physical location, you can search for people to connect with in that physical area as well. So there's a lot of data that you can use to simply reach the right person rather than a lot of people. I think on LinkedIn it's not necessarily about going viral or getting thousands and thousands of views. It doesn't matter. Let's say if there's one investor who connects you with a VC fund that puts $1 million into your business, well, that's worth a lot more than 10 million views on YouTube.
Yeah. Also, the algorithm kind of works a little bit differently. I think if you put out a message on LinkedIn, you can still get like people looking at it or reading it 2 weeks later. And at X, it's for the moment you get the visibility and then it's gone. But I have like people watching my content, reading my content, reacting to it on LinkedIn like weeks later. So kind of also works a little bit different. What kind of audience do you mostly address? Do you try to address newcomers or crypto enthusiasts or mainly Bitcoin maximalists?
Yeah, great question. I have shifted, who I've been speaking to in the last few years. I suppose my work on LinkedIn in earnest started about 3 years ago, and I was working with my coaching clients who are writers and who are they use English as a second language. So I was mostly connecting with those and targeting my message at writers who want to get better opportunities, essentially. And they're great writers, but just because they come from Egypt or Japan or wherever, they're not taken as seriously, wrongly, as native speakers. Now I have shifted my operation to writing for Bitcoin companies and founders. So I'm Bitcoin only till I die. So definitely not using the word crypto very much. And I think it can be useful to interact with those involved in blockchain, Web3, crypto, but I currently, I don't aim to work on any of those projects. So my message is for Bitcoin native companies or Bitcoin only companies, let's say, is certainly work that we need to do. And that aim is to orange pill, to convert no coiners into Bitcoiners and, crypto and Web3 enthusiasts into Bitcoiners rather than crypto people. I don't really see that as my mission because I tried to focus on something that plays to my strength rather than many people can put out great educational content or ways to convince people to take Bitcoin more seriously. I guess what my understanding of the space and my strengths is that I'm a fiction writer as well. So it's telling stories and creating the kind of posts and articles and content and stories that many can't do because it's not their strength. I think, often in the Bitcoin space, people are very technical. They come from, a certain mindset of like very objective and like something's right or wrong. This is the message to put out, but that doesn't necessarily persuade or influence the people that they need to. Because, one of my go-to sayings is like, nobody wants to study Bitcoin. Everyone's going around the Bitcoin space saying, hey, study Bitcoin. Nobody cares. Like, you go tap someone on the shoulder on the street and say, study Bitcoin. It's just like saying, study rocket science or like study the, workings of a rabbit's intestines or something like that. Why would I do that? It's like, it's work, it's hard work, and I don't know why I should. So writing messages, stories, opinions, articles, which show people why they should care. I think that's what I like to focus on, and I think is something that I hope we see a lot more of in the entertainment and infotainment and informational space of Bitcoin going forward. I see a lot of people wanting to write a book about Bitcoin. It's like, hey guys, we've got a lot of books about Bitcoin. That's not to say your ideas are not valid. They are, but why not connect it with something else that shows why people should care? If it's, like my health plus Bitcoin, it's like, oh, I also need to improve my health. So how can Bitcoin help me do this? Like that, I see as a very good endeavor. It's like, connecting it with other topics.
Yeah. And did Bitcoin change your way of living in a bit? Like, I kind of got into new diets or into looking at money differently, or being more minimalistic. Did it change you in a way?
I think I was already pretty minimalistic in terms of possessions, and I was going that way anyway. I mean, it probably has changed my perception of the world. I think that the way it's changed me most is, I mean, I've always had a fairly low time preference of like, I'm not, I'm thinking about the future, and I think if I put this work in now, then it will pay off in years to come, and I don't need things right now. But certainly I take a bigger macro view of the world and politics and history and time and things like that. And I think it's changed my political opinions, but mostly just my perception of like immediate needs. I think, let's just think long term about this. I think that's probably how it's changed my habits. Is I don't need things in the short term, really.
Yeah, the same for me. But also the living in the here and now is kind of also important, right? We live now, not tomorrow, but yeah, the time preference has definitely changed as well for me. What do you think about AI, actually, writing in times of AI? Does it feel like you have even bigger competition, or is it in fact an opportunity to stand out? How do you feel about that? Do you feel threatened or encouraged?
I think when it first launched in early 23, obviously there was a lot of fear, because the most immediate obvious thing it could do is produce text. It can do many other things, but writers were thinking, uh-oh. But in that time, people were paying attention to what it can do. And my perspective is you should only pay attention to what it needs in order to do that, what goes into the machine, and what it can't do. So I do think that a large number of writing jobs and content jobs, which are at the lower level of repurposing and summarizing and doing things like that, will or probably have already been replaced or lost. But the need for, and in fact the desire for, more human-centric content is only going up. And the top 20%, let's say, an estimate of writers who can write in that skillful human-centric way, writing stories, writing opinions, writing personal takes on things, I think are more valuable than ever. So it's definitely a challenge for writers, but for me, that's why I focus on the kind of writing that I do, because it's not something that can be replicated. I personally don't use AI myself. I know a lot of people that do and find it useful in their process. I think it's fine, but really understanding what an LLM is, how it works, what goes into the machine, and how it crunches that data, I think is important in helping writers and content producers to figure out like what is most valuable to viewers and listeners and readers.
I do believe that there will be more and more content being produced by AI. And then on the other hand, being a need for or request for human content will increase, as you say. But what will it look like in 10 years? I do think it will improve. And I wonder, will we still be able to distinguish between human writing and AI writing in 10 years, let's say? What do you think?
Yeah, probably not. I think it's definitely coming closer together unless you're in the critical mindset of trying to tell the difference. Most people don't care. You know, if you Google like how to rewire a plug, I don't care who wrote that blog. I want the answer. I guess in terms of trust, building a trust, let's say a CEO or a newspaper columnist or a politician or whoever, a thought leader, let's say a thinker, a leader in the space, publishes something, I think that still has currency. That's still worthwhile writing in a human-centric way because people trust that. There are experiences and examples that only humans could include. If something's recently happened or if the information is not available already on the web, that I think will still be important in helping build that trust so that readers, know, okay, Daniel's written this blog, I'm following that and I care because they care about you, right? They care about your story and they care about your way of thinking too. I mean, when we say, here's a story, if you're told up front, like a robot wrote this story, it's just not as meaningful. Like the meaning in any art or anything that we consume really is connected to ourselves and other people. So who knows in 10 years what it's going to be like, but all I know is I'll be continuing the human-centric model of writing and looking for opportunities to help other people do that as well. I think it's still going to be important, even if the lines are more blurred.
Yeah. I'm very curious. I don't have a clear picture how it will look like, but I'm sure quite a lot will change.
I mean, in terms of we're sitting here doing a podcast now, you can have AI podcasts. You can say, write a script and you can have avatars read it and they read it in a way which is, almost natural. But then when you think about that, would you like to listen to that podcast? No,
well,
I wouldn't.
There are things I never believed I would do, but I do use AI, and I even get into arguments with AI already, and that was for me 2 years ago. That was unimaginable. So for example, I use AI to provide transcript of my videos, and that's so easy. And so I use it quite a lot also to do search. And I remember Google saying 1 year ago, it was a red flag first time that they feel very much threatened for their search business, and said that it could overtake search in 1 or 2 years. And I'm already searching probably 50% on AI to ask things about products or whatever. And so I'm just seeing it with myself, and it's kind of weird. But I mean, if you look at younger generation,
that's more a damning indictment of Google search than it is, praise of AI, because I haven't really got into the habit of searching for things on ChatGPT, for example. And I'm sure in a lot of instances it's better because when you Google a popular topic, you're going to get companies who have just optimized content to be top of Google and not to give you the answer that you want, not to give you the information you want. Whereas AI will filter out the most useful information, most common stuff, and tell it to you. And that's probably what you want.
But I mean, Google does reflect the questions that are being asked also, I'd say, but it's kind of just a different way. that the answer is provided. You still have to go through stuff, and AI in some ways can give you more concise, more short answer.
I mean, it can look at the whole web, and rather than point you towards one option, which it thinks is the best, it will collate that information and say, this is, according to everything, what, you know, is considered the best of this category or the best answer for you. So, I mean, with AI, I think it's a bit of a nebulous catch-all term for everything. I mean, isn't everything we do on computers now being termed as AI? So it's a bit difficult. But with generative AI, let's say, I think as long as it is doing something functional and mechanical, like you said, providing a transcript, that's great, right? It saves time and gives you, you know, as near to the correct transcript as can be. I think I have absolutely no problem with that. With asking it to do something creative, it has a different process for how it creates things and puts ideas together to the human mind. And it can approximate some versions of what we might consider creative, but the pace of change is definitely getting faster. We need to iterate faster, and we need newer things faster, because everything gets old pretty quickly with so much generated text and image.
Yeah. I mean, you write, you're a Bitcoiner. Language and Bitcoin are both protocols, one for transmitting and preserving ideas, the other for transferring and preserving value. Can you draw any other meaningful analogies between them? And are they equally significant?
That's a deep question. I mean, Bitcoin, the beauty of its protocol is that it's inflexible. And I think conversely with language, especially the English language, as it's so diverse and spread, and it doesn't have a centralized controlling force. I mean, I suppose the analogy there is they're both decentralized, right? The control of the English language belongs to whoever's using it.
And there are no intermediaries when you're writing and your speech is being perceived as you intended or as you put it out. And the same is true with Bitcoin. And it's like
I'd say it's more flexible, though, you know, the English language and many other languages, in that we can be creative with inventing new words and changing the meaning of words, and, you know, manipulating grammar and things. I mean, read any fiction book and you'll see all of the rules of the English language being bent, because that's, in a way, how we create meaning. I guess an analogy as well would be that they're both living entities. Very much language is like an organic life, which spreads and develops and changes and takes on new forms. I think Bitcoin is the same. It's kind of like a tree that's you know, has its solid core, and it's growing out into all these different aspects of how it can improve people's lives and how it can connect with different social and you know, elements outside of money, I suppose.
And what do you think about censorship? Are you worried about censorship? Because there's a lot going on at the moment.
I'm certainly interested in Nostr. I run an account on Nostr, and for me, I suppose censorship isn't the number one reason why Nostr as a protocol or as a set of platforms is interesting. I love the idea of it solving the creator economy. You know, people who create podcasts or write long form articles have found, it's tiring to and it's a race to the bottom to compete for ad revenue, or to to beg for buy me a coffee, that kind of thing, or to work in these subscription models. But the pure transfer of value of zapping someone is really changing. It's I can't express how that could save people's ability to create different kinds of content. And I think it's good that it's censorship resistant. Obviously, you can censor whatever you like, but people will still find a way to express it in a space to operate. However harmful it is, I think is something we have to watch out for as Nostr grows in popularity, because it's likely that governments and institutions will start screaming about rogue accounts and dangerous content.
They already do, right? They already do.
I think it hasn't fully been demonized as, the place where, it's full of, terrorism and child pornography and stuff like that. And I think that's the weapon that governments can unleash to say, all right, let's try and try being the operative word to shut this down. So my perspective is that humans need a space which is censorship resistant, and Nostr seems like an overwhelmingly positive and open way to do that. So I'm all in favor and hope to see it grow.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. I'm on Nostr since this year, so I'm trying to use it more and more actively.
Still yet another platform to figure out, though, right? How does it work?
But I think the main reason is censorship resistance, because there's a lot going on other platforms, and I think we have gotten used to the fact that most of the communication and exchange of ideas is happening online nowadays, and it's happening on platforms of private companies. So that's kind of weird. So I do hope that Nostr will grow, and I think it's kind of a key to free speech in the digital age. So
it's important to have a record, almost like a time chain of what you've produced that you own, or that is not, at least is not beholden to being co-opted and used to train AI, or sold to advertisers, or even misused or withdrawn, and
or
you
just
can't
shut down. Yeah, which happens. I mean, you build up a YouTube channel for years, put all your time in it, and then you do something wrong, and then it's gone. That's kind of crazy. Yeah. So at the end of my podcast, I want to ask my guests to share what they think, what's most important for newcomers to understand about Bitcoin. So if you had 30 seconds, if you'd had half a minute to orange pill someone, what would you say?
I would say we all like trees, and we want more trees because they provide a better future, and investing time, effort, and some of your hard-earned money into Bitcoin is like planting a tree. You don't do it because you want fruit tomorrow. You do it because you believe that it's good for all of us, and that in years to come it will provide more than enough for you. I guess that's how I view Bitcoin as a millennial who has / had no planning for my retirement fund and not a great deal of financial literacy. Look at it super long term. Just plant $10, $50, what you can afford, and trust. Not trust, that's the wrong word, but verify the fact that it will pay dividends and treat you well in the future.
Great. Beautiful. Thanks so much. Yeah.
Thanks for that. Yeah. We had a lot of talk about trees. The language is a tree, Bitcoin is a tree,
Yeah.
Maybe I just need to go and touch some grass or something.
No, that was a great
long.
analogy, and it's a very different, interesting input than what I usually hear. So thanks so much for your time, and I guess we'll see each other at some Bitcoin conference in the future.
Of course we will. Thanks so much for having me, Daniel, and power to you. Keep making this great podcast and keep creating.